Hello everybody, I'm Just True and welcome back to another video. 2022 is over and just last week the Academy Awards announced all their nominees for all the Oscars up for grabs this March, including Best Picture. Having seen all 10 of those nominees now, I'm going to give you my pick for Best Picture out of those, as well as the top 20 movies of 2022 in my opinion, including not only those nominees, but also all of the films that I have seen this year. And lastly, though I did see a wide array of films this year and this past month, I was not able to get around to a few that I think could have made the list had I had the time to watch them. This includes Broker, Bardo, The Battle at Lake Changjin, The Menu, Saint Omer, Suzumi, and many more. And when I do get around to watching those, if you do want to read my reactions to them and see how they place overall on my top 2022 list, check the link in the description or in the info card for my Letterboxd account, where I publish movie reviews weekly for every single film that I watch. Coming up on 1,000 reviews now. Would greatly appreciate the support. Without farther ado, let's get into it. So to spare you details, counting down from number 20, we have at number 20, Everything Everywhere All at Once, directed by Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert. At number 19, Don't Worry Darling, directed by Olivia Wilde. At number 18, RRR, directed by S.S. Rajamouli. At number 17, Prey, directed by Dan Trachtenberg. At number 16, Bullet Train, directed by David Leitch. Alright, so number 15. Aftersun, directed by Charlotte Wells. Now, this is a British drama film, Scottish, I believe, actually, set in Turkey, though, following a single father and his 12-year-old daughter as they vacation in Turkey. Now, the sole focus of this film is the daughter as an adult, maybe thinking about having kids of her own, is going back and watching the footage from that vacation and looking at her father in a new light, seeing him not just as a father, but as a person with his own struggles. And we see that captured, we see the details of that captured on film when it finally comes time for her to look back with the mature eyes of an adult rather than just as a child getting by. It's a very cute film, I think, very touching just to watch this small but loving family, the father trying to provide. Also very phenomenally acted. I was happy to see Paul Mescal get a Best Actor nomination for this. I do hope he wins. And very prettily shot as well. In style, though, it's very slice of life, very low-key, but, I find it very thought-provoking on, the struggles of being a parent, and I really loved it. Alright, number 14, we have Nope from Jordan Peele. This is his third outing since Get Out, very popular, and Us. I believe both got some Oscar buzz themselves. This one actually didn't get any nominations, which surprised me. But, all three of those were a very acclaimed, very dense films. Nice tributes to the horror genre, but, they did their own thing. A little bit comedic, a little bit of satire, comedy in there. I found that this one was really the quintessential pick, though, from his filmography, because you see it takes on not only aliens is the focus of this one, huge alien force just coming down on these people, and they've never seen anything like it, have no idea where it came from, how to stop it. It's a very exciting adventure movie, but the way it's presented, it really does come across as a significant satire on spectacle and struggles and just how they seem so huge sometimes, but in the end, we can fight them off, and that's inspiring to me. So at number 13, we have The Northman from Robert Eggers, known for The Lighthouse, starring Robert Pattinson, Willem Dafoe, as well as The Witch, starring Anya Taylor-Joy. Both of these sort of offbeat, more artistic horror films, but less like Jordan Peele in the satirical, comical way. These ones are instead more dark, more dramatic, a little bit symbolic, but in less of a social way and more of in a like deeper, almost religious, commentative sense. This one a little bit less so than his normal works. This one is really at its core just a action epic. It's very brutal, very beautifully shot. I mean, it's set in Iceland and a lot of other sort of northern areas. Of course, the Northman, northern Europe. It's beautiful landscapes, I'll tell you. I mean, I was in awe the whole time, even though it is a very brutal film. There is quite a significant amount of beauty to it, a little bit of magic thrown in too, and it's an interesting focus and very well done. I really enjoyed it. All right, at number 12, we have Uncharted. Now, this one is probably the most controversial pick on this list, especially since the last three were all, very acclaimed, very awards circle artistic film. This one is more of really just, genre fare, fantastic action. I adore it. I'm not gonna say I'm above that stuff. I grew up, even now, watching National Treasure, Indiana Jones, and this is exactly in that same vein. Now, I say this might be controversial though, because obviously it's a video game movie, and a lot of people don't like it just because, it's not faithful to the source material. I'll admit, I've never played Uncharted. This movie makes me want to. I'll probably love it even more. But I did watching this having no expectations. It was very bombastic, very high budget, a caper, all across the world. I was thrilled the entire time in the theater, and really, what more can you ask for? And at number 11, just barely out of the top 10, but I have no regrets. The top 10 is great. This one is to It's Tar, starring Cate Blanchett, directed by Todd Field. This follows the central character, Lydia Tarr, a very renowned composer. You get to see the build-up of her career, the people that she steps over, and then how instead of achieving that absolute success that you might see in people like, Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, that have had, uh, these very tumultuous rises to stardom and ventures, under the spotlight. Lydia Tarr, she hits that point. It's a fictional character, by the way, but she hits that point, and then it all sort of comes back to bite her, all that she did. And I found it very thought-provoking. It really makes you think about, the talents a person has and whether just because you are, better than everyone else, does that mean you get to act like it? And does that mean you get to disrespect others? No. And ultimately, that comes back to bite you. Okay, number 10, first film of our top 10 is Argentina, 1985. Now, I will admit, I do not watch many movies from Argentina. I believe besides this and The Secret in Their Eyes, maybe some others I'm forgetting, Argentine film just has never really come into the forefront in my opinion, but this is on Amazon Prime. It actually won some Oscar nominations, very high ratings on Letterboxd, the site that I use. I decided to check it out, honestly, blown away. It's a political drama following the collapse of the real-world dictatorship in Argentina, 1985. At this point, though, it was collapsed through change in the legal system. Uh, I found it very compelling as myself, hoping to become a lawyer myself someday and having a great interest in politics and government as well. I found it very inspiring in the way that you see these young lawyers, journalists, etc., really coming to take down, this dictatorship. And it's very stylishly presented as well, very energetic film. And though there are maybe one or two issues in how it's presented as a whole, I think, from a historical basis, I found it quite entertaining and just generally compelling as well. At number 9, we have the K-drama Decision to Leave. Now, I didn't get to see much from Korea this year. Normally, I love a lot of Korean media, TV, animation, movies, especially like this. But this one really started out, won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, and it's from Park Chan-wook, the director, known for Old Boy, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, The Handmaiden. Lots of phenomenal films that I've never seen. This was my first venture into his filmography besides. Let me tell you, it blew me away. It's all over the place, but it's keeps its dramatic core the whole time about romance and conflict. I think there's a very interesting way that they portray that, and having it focus on a detective as the main character, it really goes to show how, with the rise and falls of the different cases he enters into, and how that sort of mirrors and even intertwines with occasionally his own romantic life. You know, overall, it ends up being very exciting on a surface level and also on a personal level as you watch him, you know, go through all that, and you kind of end up hating him, but you kind of end up sympathizing with him in a little bit too. So very thought provoking how that works. I thought it was very well done. And at number 8, we have Babylon from director Damien Chazelle. I should not have been anxious about this at all after Whiplash and La La Land. I should have known that Damien would knock it out of the park, and he sure did with this. This is his biggest budget film yet, I believe, and it really shows. It goes the extra mile on every single visual, every single set piece is just huge, grand, tons of elaborate details, tons of extras, tons of period costumes. It's truly an ode to Hollywood in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, following the rise of, you know, talking films over silent films. And it explores that in a way that's uh, a lot more modern sensibilities, a lot less constrained than something you'd see in like Singing in the Rain. It certainly appeals to its own sort of niche with how specific the focus is and how you know, detailed the style is, but I found it fit me perfectly, you know, and I'd recommend it trying it out if you think you're up for it. At number 7, we have The Fablemans, Steven Spielberg's latest work, Best Picture nominee. I believe he got a Best Direction nominee. Huge award winner, won the Golden Globe Best Drama. Uh, and I say it won my heart over too. Probably my favorite Spielberg. Admitted I haven't seen Catch Me If You Can, Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List, some of the great ones, but I have seen quite a few, and this tops them all by a pretty easy margin, if I say. It's probably his most personal film that he's ever put out, following his own life. Not really the rise to stardom, but more just how he gets his interest in film in the first place. And it really only goes up to the moment where he finally stops working independently and gets his foot in the door. And I feel like that's the most passionate time. You know, he's young, there's a lot of personal conflicts, family conflicts that are very authentic, very compelling, but it's also a love letter completely to the power of cinema. And, you know, I got the shirt. I talk movies too much. I adored it. All right. At number 6, we have Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Really a spectacle to behold if you look at the MCU this year. A lot of misses. Thor Love and Thunder, not my cup of tea. Very bad reviews as well. Multiverse of Madness, Doctor Strange. I like Sam Raimi, but again, didn't really win me over. This, I'll say, probably the best that Marvel, or at least the MCU, has done besides Endgame. I mean, this Endgame number 1, this is number 2. It's huge what they were able to accomplish here. Fantastic action movie, fantastic characters and setting, and beautiful world building, but also with the passing of Chadwick Boseman, very touching and very emotional. It feels inspired in a way that most of these modern big budget films don't these days. Very rooted in the real culture of African communities as well as Native American communities, indigenous communities in Mexico specifically. You see the addition of Namor as a character that's more of a Caribbean setting, Atlantis. It really ties into a whole anti-colonialist message at the end, which, puts it a bit over the edge. I like movies like that, and I adored this. All right, at number 5, kicking off our top 5 is Cha Cha Real Smooth, directed by, written by, and starring Cooper Raiff. Probably the first great Gen Z filmmaker that I have seen. This guy's in his early 20s, and he's already made 2 films, both phenomenal, I'll tell you. I don't understand really though why he named it Cha Cha Real Smooth. I mean, they only play the song for like 10 seconds in the movie. I don't know if he couldn't get the rights to it in the end or what happened. But, I mean, that's the name of the movie. But let me tell you, once I pressed play on that thing, it had me hook, line, and sinker from start to finish. It's phenomenal the way that they understand, the way people my age, finding their place in the world. It captures that feeling in a way that's not only specific to the modern senses of isolation and social anxiety that you see in so many young folks these days, young men especially, but also in a very timeless, universal way. And it looks at his relationship with his family, his efforts to find love in a way that's not necessarily all starry and beautiful, but in a way that's really meaningful to real life, very sweet, but in a grounded way. It has its high points, its laughs. It has some low points, but really it's just a phenomenal little capsule of life in our modern times. And I mean, you can't really get much greater than that. At number 4 is Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Sort of the opposite of the last one. This one has an all Gen Z cast pretty much, except for Lee Pace, who's in there for some reason. But it's directed by some lady in like her 40s or something. I don't know why she's making a movie about Gen Z, but hey, here she is. And you know what? She did a good job, I'll tell you. Because this is a very biting satire, not only on the class effort of it, focusing on a bunch of rich kids stuck in a horror movie, killing each other, yada yada. But also just a genuinely good genre slasher sort of thriller horror movie, And with a phenomenal twist at the end too that really makes it hit home more than anything, really makes you think about what it is that young people value and why it is that we seem to be so mean to each other, Because young people can be mean. It shows it in a very, very brutal, but also very entertaining fashion. And I mean, watching that in the theater, accompanied by fantastic music, Charlie XCX original song for this movie. Sad she didn't get the Oscar nomination, but I wasn't expecting it. That's very genre music. Anyway, I loved it so much watching it, and as soon as it was over, I wanted to watch it a second time. All right, top 3. These 3, I'll say, are all probably in my top 100 movies of all time. I know that sounds like a big list, but you gotta keep in mind, I've seen a lot of movies. This is like, the A+ tier of movies. And I'm surprised 2022 had 3 of them. Phenomenal accomplishment. Anyway, this is Bones and All. Forget the name of the director, but anyway, he made some stuff. He made that Suspiria remake a couple years ago. Most notably, he made Call Me By Your Name, also starring Timothée Chalamet. This one stars Timothy as well, who I love. I love Timothée Chalamet, but honestly, Call Me By Your Name, one of my least favorite films ever. I just found it very off-putting for a variety of reasons. I'm sure you can dig up my review of it below, but I was very skeptical coming into this one. I was like, oh man, Timothy's getting back with this director. I'm not sure it's gonna be that great, but really, it surpassed my expectations hugely. It's got that sort of rural American setting. Again, not really a world hopping adventure, but definitely a road trip movie across, the region of the United States I'm most familiar with, I most identify with. But that aside, it's a phenomenal tale of a romance, all on the backdrop of cannibalism. It's a horror romance. And I didn't think that genre mix would work at all. I'll tell you it does. Because you know what? There is something a little bit scary about loving someone. There is something a little bit scary because when you love someone, you can't control yourself. And I'll tell you, This movie put that fear in the most literal, most savage way possible, but it's apt. And you know what? It's really thought-provoking and, at its core, very entertaining as well. And coming in at the number 2 spot is a drama from Finland. Stumbled across it completely by accident, and it blew me away, I'll tell you. Completely surprised me. Absolute masterpiece. I'd recommend it to anyone. Because I talk a lot about film starring teenagers. Obviously, I'm young. I like movies with young people because I relate to it. I understand the emotions better. You know, it makes me feel good just to see myself on the big screen. People like me, at least. But this one, I mean, it transcends them all. I've never seen a movie so accurately depict, what it's like to be a young person in this modern time. And I'm not talking about just trends or fashion and slang. I'm talking about, the genuine issues, like the criticism of yourself and the sort of young age kids are being exposed to things with social media and that sort of competitive environment. And I mean, this film captures that in a way that's very apt, very sad almost, but it never feels tragic. Because really, in spite of it all, what brings us together is just loving each other, and that's how we learn to love ourselves. Because you know what? It is a very hard, very long battle to try and hate yourself. But love, all you gotta do is take one step in the right direction, and other people in your life are gonna pull you all the way out of that, And I found that very inspiring, especially starring a character so similar to myself. But now, it's the placement that should come as a surprise to absolutely no one. It is The Batman. If you have talked to me at all in the past years, you have heard me rave about this movie. I was hyped before, like years before it was coming out. And when it came out, I watched that thing 4 times in theaters. I remember each time more distinctly and more fondly than the last. I remember pulling up in my little Riddler jacket that I'm sure some of you have seen on my Twitter. I post about it, but gosh, that was a cinematic experience, and it's 3 hours of raw, beautiful, fantastically choreographed, fantastically shot action with Robert Pattinson as Batman. I mean, it doesn't get cooler than that. He's the hottest man in the world. Look up, hottest man in the world. It literally comes up with Robert Pattinson. Like, literally. This guy, it understands the Batman mythos and everything in a way that's not just action and fighting and these elaborate mysteries. And I'm telling you, it's got those in droves, and I appreciate it. But also understands the little bit of a grunge at the heart of it, and the little bit of sulking that you see touched at with Batman in films like The Dark Knight, but never really tied so intrinsically into the character. And in the end, it asks very critically, what does it mean to turn a man into a hero? What does it mean when we look at these characters like Batman and think about them from a social perspective, from a perspective relating to policing and vigilantism and idealism, and it's fantastically done in a way that's very smart. It's an entertaining drama, completely contained within itself, but nevertheless not shy from getting serious once in a while. It's a perfect blend of everything that's made Batman over all these years. What makes him such a universal character, that is captured perfectly here, and I'll tell you, it is the definitive Batman movie. Out of all the comics, all the TV shows, all of the dozens of movies they made about him, this is the one. And it's in a year that I'm alive. I get to see it in theaters. How lucky am I? Anyway, this has been my top 20 movies of 2022. If you think there's anything that I was forgetting, that I didn't get to see, or just that I watched and didn't like, such as, let's say, The Banshees of Inisherin, probably gonna win Best Picture this year. I didn't like it at all, but I'm not here to talk about the things I don't like. I'm here to talk about the good things in life, and that's what I'm doing with this video. If you got any recommendations or questions about these movies for me, or anything else you'd like to see in a video in the future, comment below. This has been Just True, and I am leaving you to enjoy another day, and I hope you have a good week, a good year, and I'm gone.